Hello. It's been a little while since I've been on my channel of the wife of the dying man. Because you know what life's like. Sometimes things just get away from you and you just don't feel like doing it or it feels too difficult. So I'm here now to catch up. The last time I was on here, it was June and it's now October. This is to 2024. So I want to talk through holidays really, because actually we've done a couple of holidays since I was last on here. So this video is going to be about our cruise. Now, in the end of June, we went on a 2 week cruise. We went with P&O on Arvia, big ship, 5,000 passengers. We had a disabled room and it was brilliant. It's very well organised. We only live 5 miles from Southampton docks, so it's very easy. Taxi, hmm, it was okay. He didn't turn up quite on time, but we had plenty of time. Um, but I have to say that the taxi back was the one thing that stressed me out on the holiday. So halfway through the holiday, I said to Mick, "We're going to cancel that taxi." Because I didn't know where he was going to meet. I didn't know if they'd be there on time. Didn't know what time we'd be getting off the ship. So we cancelled it. And when we got back, we just picked up a taxi at the port. Anyway, that's at the end of the holiday. But it was really nice. We had good assistance. We went to check in and then they literally wheeled us to our cabin. So I said we had a disabled cabin. So it's a big cabin. We got, a nice balcony. It's all set up for accessibility, wheel-in shower, grab rails everywhere. So it was good. The only downside was that beds were split into twin beds and there's a big pillar in the middle of the room. And we gave Mick the bed closest to the toilet. And when you're on that bed, you could only see half of the telly because the pillar was in the way. I mean, we didn't watch a lot of telly, but sometimes, it's nice just to chill out and watch a little bit. But yeah, it's a small price to pay. So he'd had to lie on the bed, sort of like twisting around and watching the telly from round the pillar. But as I say, we didn't watch much, although there was a Grand Prix on while we were away, and the World Cup was on while we were away, and England were playing in a couple of matches. So we did watch a bit of that in the room. It was good though, and I would say that cruising is great for disabled people because it's really set up for it, particularly if you get a disabled room. There's plenty of space. We had room for the wheelchair. We didn't take the wheelie scooter, the little travel scooter this time, but we could have. There would have been room in there in that the cabin for it as well. The doors were all push button and things, so there's no handles and things to even the outside door to the balcony. And it was just lovely. It was really nice to be away. It was nice to chill out and just have a change of scenery. And I was slightly worried that with 5,000 people on it might be busy, might feel busy. But you know what? It wasn't. It was just the right amount of people for the ship. There was always a space to get a drink somewhere. We only had to queue once, I think, really for eating. I think we waited about 45 minutes on one of the first 2 days. I think that's because people were just getting used to, when to go, what time to go, what places there were to eat. We had a choice of places to eat. So there's a couple of like the main restaurants where you just sit down and have your 3 course meal and a glass of wine or whatever. And then there were some other restaurants that you can pay for. But actually, there's a good choice of restaurants that were free. We ate in the American Diner a couple of times. We ate in, it was called the Olive Tree or something like that. We didn't actually pay for any of our meals. We decided not to go to the specialty restaurants. We didn't feel we really needed to. So it was quite a cheap holiday, actually. I mean, we spent little bit on drinking. We didn't get a drinks package because we don't drink enough to warrant that. But we just bought the drinks that we wanted when we wanted them. And actually, we had, I think we had £500 worth of onboard spending money, and we were never going to drink that much. So that worked fine. In fact, that £500 also paid for us to have some professional photos done. And I'll put a professional photo on the cover of this video because they were fabulous. And I decided while we were away that we wanted to get a professional photo done of us on the cruise because they do some really nice photos. Usually when you dress up for the evening, you get a couple of evenings where you don your gown or your dicky bow. And they have the photographers around the ship where you can just queue and stand and have your photo taken. But obviously for Mick in the wheelchair, we didn't want pictures of it in the wheelchair. So we actually decided to go to the photo studio and we booked a slot there and we went there and we got him out of the wheelchair onto like a cushiony, stooly type thing that I then draped myself around him and she was really good, the photographer. So he spent about £200 on photos. But, for me, it was worth it because it could be the last photos that we have, and like really nice photos that we have. And they did come out lovely. So it's definitely well worth it. Um, so yes, we did that, and then there were stops on the cruise. We didn't get off at every stop, but we did get off at quite a few. So we got off. So some of the stops are quite easy because you literally just wheel off and you're in the town. So we got off at La Coruna, which we'd not been to before, and that was really nice. We had a little pot around there and walked on the seafront up into the town and the streets and had a little wander around there. And we didn't get off at Mallorca because that was all about minibuses and things, and we just decided we couldn't be bothered, so we didn't get off there. I'm trying to remember all the stops now. um, we we did get off at Marseille, even though we had to get a minibus from there. It was 20 minutes out of the port. I mean, I found myself sitting in the front of the minibus with the driver talking French, or at least listening to French. I understood quite a lot of what he said, had a little bit of conversation using my schoolgirl French. So that was quite fun. Marseille itself, the area that we went to there wasn't that great. And to get up to the cathedral and that, there was like lots and lots of steps. So we did find a road that was just a road where I could push him up, and so we did get up to see the cathedral. But I wouldn't have raved about Marseille, to be honest. Where else did we go? We did Cadiz on the way back. That was lovely. So there's some really nice places, and we did get off. As I said, I think there was only 2 stops in the end that we didn't get off. I think we got off at maybe 4, and we just had a little potter around, and that was nice. Just sit down at the seafront, just to be off the ship, get a bit of a change of scenery, maybe get a coffee or something. So that was lovely. And as I said, it is all catered for disabled people. They put on the buses, they help you with whatever you want to do. You can go on excursions, or you can just stay on the boat. And some days it's really nice to be on the boat when everybody else is off. And I had a little swim in the pool, and we lay on a sunbed for a while. And I mean, most of the days we got into a little routine. We'd get up when Mick was ready, we'd go down for breakfast, then we'd have a little pot around, we'd go to a Costa Coffee and get him a coffee, then maybe I'd go for a cigarette, 'cause there's only one place on the ship that you can smoke, what I call Windy Corner. You could hardly light your cigarette up there. It was so windy. Since we come back, we bought him a windproof lighter, like a little electric lighter, because it was almost impossible. But and it was right at the other end of the ship from our cabin and that as well. So, but hey, it's not like we didn't have the time. So we'd do that. Then we'd potter back to the room for a bit. Usually the cabin steward had tidied our room by then, so we'd sit on the balcony for a little while. Then, of course, it was time for lunch. So we'd go to the buffet and have a little lunch there. Maybe even go for afternoon tea later in the day. But usually in the afternoon, we'd try and find somewhere outside to sit and have a beer or a coffee or a cocktail, a nice pina colada or something sitting there. When you're traveling on the ship, sometimes it's sunny and sometimes it's not, just because even down in the Med, when you're out in the ocean, it's not always as warm. But once we got sort of around the corner and that, from Portugal around towards France, and that it generally was warm enough to sit outside. And certainly the days where it was docked, it was hot, so it was really good. So we had a really nice time. We didn't have any accidents or incidents, no pooing, no issues at all. I mean, this ship had so many disabled toilets that you were literally within about 100 yards of a disabled toilet wherever you went. So we didn't have any issue with that. So literally, it was really calm like that for me. And for me, although I still felt I was caring for him and doing what he wanted, I actually felt really very relaxed on the cruise. Felt like we had plenty of time just to chill out. And it was really nice. Really enjoyed it. The only trouble was that partway through the holiday, Mick told me that he actually didn't feel very well from a seasickness point of view. I mean, he coped really well, and I hadn't noticed. He hadn't really, showed any symptoms or anything. His balance was a bit off when we were in the cabin, but that was to be expected, really, with his, mobility issues. But he sort of said when we came to the end that he wasn't sure he wanted to do a cruise again, because even though the cruise itself was fantastic, he just felt a bit sort of like out of kilter and a bit vague all of the time. So we did sit down and discuss that. And I actually recorded him. I said to him, I need to record you telling me this. I says, because in 3 months' time when we get back, you're not going to remember. And then we're going to go on a cruise again next year and you're going to be feeling the same. So we did record a little conversation just confirming that he didn't feel that great on the cruise and he's not sure that he wanted to do a cruise again. So, that was a bit of a shame, but we enjoyed it while we were there. We had a great time. And when we got home and got off, we picked up a taxi on the way back, and that worked really well. We were off. I mean, we were home by about 9:30 that morning, so it was fantastic. It was a really good trip. And then about 3 days after we got home, he wasn't right at all. He was kind of like he'd been before when I'd called an ambulance, where his speech was a bit slurred. He wasn't really with it. He couldn't really stand up. And I was a bit worried, and I said to him, I think we ought to be calling an ambulance for this, because I suspect that you probably picked something up on the ship, whether it was COVID or just a virus or something. But he wasn't having any of it. He didn't want to know. So I said to him, okay. So we cracked open the antibiotics that the consultant had given us before we went, in case anything happened. And he took those for, actually only took him probably for about 3 days. He went to bed. I made him drink lots of water. And even the next day, he wasn't quite right, but he was definitely better. And within 3 days, he was kind of pretty much back to normal. So that was a bit of a worry when we came back. And this is always the trouble when you take somebody with, autoimmune diseases and on chemo treatment and things. There's a risk that they're going to pick something up. It didn't happen on the cruise, which was great. So we were at home when it happened. And although I was worried, we kind of dealt with it. We did get told off by the consultant when we spoke to him. You should have rung us. And I was like, well, it's his choice. He didn't want to go into hospital and get treated for it. So we just dealt with it at home. And, it is his choice to do that. But then what was interesting was about a week later, he wasn't right again. He was actually physically sick. And when I knew that we'd changed one of his drugs for his MS, and because they hadn't been able to get the drug that he normally uses is pregabalin, and he takes like 3 times the 100 twice a day, 100 to 100 3 times a day. So what's that? 600 a day. And they'd given him gabapentin instead, and they had said that the dose was slightly different. But anyway, the doctor rang us because I'd put in a request to talk to somebody about the medication. And we had this discussion, and I said to him, I don't think the gabapentin's agreeing with him because he's been sick. He's like all over the place. And the doctor said, I'm not surprised. He said, they've not given you a high enough dosage. He says, pregabalin is 1/6 of the gabapentin is 1/6 of the pregabalin. So you're only taking 1/6 of what he's used to, that he's been taking for like 15 years. He said he's probably suffering from withdrawal symptoms. Oh, well, that explains it. So once we knew, that was fine. So I just like upped the gabapentin that we had, and he prescribed a bigger dose for when I had to go and replace it. And then fortunately, within a month or so, the pregabalin was back available as a source. But that was like quite a learning experience. I knew that there was something not right, knew it was something to do with the change of drugs, but I hadn't really considered withdrawal symptoms, and it made complete sense. So anyway, we got him back. So from about a month after we're back, there's all these things going on, but ultimately, he was fine, and yeah, so it was a great cruise. We got over it when we got back, dealing with the health issues. He's fine. His bloods are all good at the moment, and we had a really quiet August, which was quite nice. Just chilled out at home, and when we came back from the cruise, we then did book another holiday because I wanted to check how he got on being away from home. But he was fine. And so we actually booked another holiday, which I'll tell you about in the next video, because I'll spend a little bit of time telling you about flying holiday and the challenges that come with that, but also the good things that come with that as well. So anyway, I hope it's useful. It's nice to be back on here. I'm going to try and do these a bit more regularly again. And if anybody's got any questions or anybody wants to chat to me because you're in a similar situation, please do reach out, because I'm really happy to talk through my experiences with people. Anyway, I'll see you in the next video.